Hey everyone, Stephanie here on my swashbuckler in Pirate101. So first, I would like to welcome the 60 or 70 new people who have subscribed to my channel since I started playing Duelist. So for those of you who are from Duelist, Pirate101 is a game with a very similar combat style. There's like a board with squares, and so there's a positional element in the gameplay, and then there's also a card element in that you choose which cards to play. So in the battles you control 4 units, which is your pirate or your general, so to speak, and crew members. For the crew members or companions, there's a wide selection of them. Some of them you recruit through the mainline story questing, and some of them you can purchase for money. So buying extra companions just expand your options when you're putting together teams and strategies. And for each companion, they also come with certain cards that you can cast, and you can also build them in certain ways to take advantage of positioning. So Bonnie Ann, for example, is a long-ranged musket unit. This means that she's most effective when attacking from a distance, and you can either use her to dissuade the opponent from approaching by having her attack when enemies approach, or you can build her as a quick draw unit, which is to counter other ranged attackers. It's a game with a very dynamic combat system. Unfortunately, it doesn't have much exposure, and it actually hasn't received a significant update in like 3 years, but there's still a pretty lively, though small, PvP community. So and also the way that I learned about Duelist was actually also through a friend who plays Pirate101. There's a lot of similarities in terms of the strategy component of the two games. Unfortunately, Pirate's development is kind of held back by a number of factors. One is that because the marketing for this game was very ambiguous, some people came into this game from another game developed by the same company called Wizard101, which is currently in its 11th year. So that game has a reputation for being family friendly, which means that a lot of people who play Wiz are either very young children or like parents and grandparents with playing with their families. So the thing is that a lot of us who were under the age of majority, myself included, when we started playing Wizard101 are now young adults. And young adults have a different social need when it comes to games. So as a Wizard101 age, some of us moved over to Pirate, but then at the same time, the company was also marketing Pirate as a family-friendly game. So the people who came into Pirate from Wiz expecting a more complex game with more complex mechanics got that experience, but at the same time, there's also a lot of children and retirees and people who expect a more simple game who also play Pirate101. So it's like there's all these different community members asking for different things. Some of us really want the PvP in this game to be expanded on, whereas other people just are not interested in PvP at all. So anyway, today I would just like to share with you a friendly Spar chamber match I played with Honest Abe, who also used to be a Wiz player before he switched to Pirate, and he is also a young adult now. He used to make a lot of videos actually, but lately he's been pretty busy, and I am also going to be pretty busy. Like, I'm going to be completing my education at the end of this year, hopefully, if everything goes well, and then I'll be entering the job market for the first time. So it's going to be a pretty stressful year. Like, I'm going to be searching for jobs, and some of my friends, you know, as they graduated and looked for jobs, like, it took them many months of searching. So I expect this year to be pretty tough. But I am going to make an effort to take good care of my mental health, you know, make sure I still get to do the things I enjoy. Like, I think the American Psychological Association recommends at least 1 hour of just doing stuff that you really enjoy each day. So without further ado, let me just share with you the match I played with Abe. This game does not, unfortunately, offer a replay feature, unlike Duelist. So the people who care about PvP in this game, like, we have developed a number of grassroots efforts to record matches, provide commentary, but the game itself does not actually have any built-in recording or even spectating features. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. So for those of you who care about what gear I was wearing, this is my swashbuckler, and Abe was on his privateer for this match. The previous time we did a video together, I played privateer and he played buccaneer. Anyway, so this is a free-to-play set that I wore because someone else challenged me to a free-to-play gear-only match after that match, so here's the stuff. Vicious Charge, Revive, Fort. The reason I wasn't using the Fort hat, which is the Tanto Jutsu headband, is because I don't have Brutal Charge on my pet, so the ideal pet for Swashbuckler would actually have Brutal Charge as a grant here, so you can wear a Fort instead. But reducing people's accuracy is really important on Swashbuckler because we get reaction hits when they miss, so it's just really nice to have an accuracy reduce somewhere in your gear set. And then these knives for an extra height, although you have to be very careful with positioning to avoid accidentally triggering the flanking. I also have a video on the mechanics of flanking if you have not seen that video. Then Fort here, Hide, Assassin, Purge against Privateers is pretty important because they have a lot of buffs. And then Assassin and Poison. So this was a free-to-play set. I think in the match with Abe I wore something a bit different. I had this hat instead and this robe, so basically the same cards but just slightly better stats, like slightly better dodge and accuracy. And I think I might also have been using this weapon instead of the Nefarious Knife, so slightly better weapon power. But yeah, if you don't have the set that requires money to get, like the free-to-play set is not that different. Alright, so here's the team that he was using. He was using an all swashbuckler team, Contessa, El Toro, and Wagyu, which is a purchased companion, and they all have First Strike 3. So the reason he went with First Strike 3 is because they can spot hidden attacks, so the increased weapon power that swashbucklers get from being hidden, it just gets disarmed basically and made into a regular attack. And what I did here was I just moved my team forward a little bit because I wanted to be in range to hit after hiding. So here's the stuff that he was wearing. He had a pet with Scent 2, which can detect hidden attackers and then backstab, Brutal Charge, Relentless Turn the Tide, and Elusive, and then the weapon would Turn the Tide, and he had 2 Assassin Strikes in his gear set. And then just extra forts and revives. So privateers are just really tanky in general. They have a lot of resources and they usually win through resource advantage. When they win, if they don't win, it is because their base stats are really bad and they get overwhelmed by aggro strategies. So here what I was doing was, yeah, he said buckler counters buckler. So mostly when privateers play against swashbucklers, they use swashbuckler companions that can counter the hidden attacks. So at this point I was thinking about positioning. He's just BSing at this point, saying buckler companions increase the critical chance of big guns, which they clearly don't. Okay, so my pet randomly casts a Rainbow Blessing, which gives my entire team a small heal and slightly increased stats. Anyway, so most companions in this game have a movement range of 5. Contessa has a range of 6 and Fan has a range of 7. So he cast another Guns, which is a 9 square attack, 3x3. Distance attack is something that's unique to privateers. At this point, I was trying to clear some stuff in my hand because I was really looking for a team hide called Black Fog. So what hide does is it makes our units untargetable for the duration of the hide, and it also doubles our weapon power when we come out of hide. So swashbuckler is the assassin class, and the concept of hiding and then striking from the dark is something that's unique to our class. Although other classes can also choose to train one hide, but swashbucklers get the most number of hides naturally. Okay, so what I did here was I put on a slight critical buff. It increases my chances of critical by 10% for 10 turns, and then I put on Ratbeard's shield, which decreases incoming melee damage by 25% for 10 turns. So the Ratbeard and Bonnie combo is a very strong one in many situations, because Ratbeard decreases the dodge of any approaching melee units if you give him hold the line rank 3, and then Bonnie, if you give her Overwatch rank 3, she reduces the accuracy of approaching melee units. Okay, so he put on a team critical buff, which is something that's unique to privateers. And then he used El Toro's special ability, which increases the entire team's accuracy and dodge. And then he used Contessa's hide. So Contessa now has double weapon power for 5 turns. And at this point, my hand was still looking really bad. Because of the way that I built my Ratbeard, he does not have First Strike 3, so I really needed to look for the team hide at this point, and I was thinking here about what cards to toss to look for the team hide. One thing about this game is that when you toss a card, you cannot get it back later, so unlike replacing in Duelist. So what I did was I got rid of the poison because I figured that might be too slow, and then I didn't really want to get rid of anything else, so I was trying to buy some time to look for the hide by just retreating. And here I'm putting them in like in a cluster formation, because the team hide only works when all of your units are adjacent to each other. Okay, so my pet is an AI control unit that just approached his El Toro and triggered the first strike. So yeah, my pet commit kamikaze there. Now it was his turn. And here I said there's a certain card that I may or may not have in hand. Oh, and he got a critical big guns. Not only a critical, but a super, which is the highest roll. So he got really, really lucky there. One thing that people have been asking for in this game actually is less RNG in PvP, because it gets really, really annoying when people win off critical, which you can't control, which is not strategic at all. I mean, he did have the critical buff, but he got really lucky with just the highest roll. So I tossed my critical buff because I was looking for the team hide, and I had, shields and heals in hand that I didn't really want to get rid of, especially since swashbucklers have a very short supply of those. So I just, I also decided to just toss the Walk in Darkness, because at this point I really needed the team hide, the Black Fog. The Walk in Darkness is a solo hide just for your pirate, not for your team. Yeah, so he said, oof, the fog card. Buckler can't win without it. So at this point I was just like mentally keeping track of his resources again. One feature that I really appreciate about Duelist is how there's like a bar at the side that keeps track of which cards have been cast during the battle, so you don't have to keep track mentally. Most of the people who play pirate PvP at a fairly competitive level, like they either write down on a notepad the cards that each side has and what has or has not been cast, or they keep track mentally. Yeah, I was really unfortunate here. I discarded a ton of stuff and just did not draw the fog, even though I put it first. So you can order your cards to adjust the odds of drawing them, and I was just really unlucky, didn't draw the fog. So instead, because I was on the edge of the battle map and couldn't move out of range, I had to make some other choices here. So I think what I did was I moved my Ratbeard. Yeah, I moved my Ratbeard to make him choose his target with Contessa, and then I dropped my shield. And I had Bonnie decrease the dodge of his team because I expected Bonnie to die pretty soon. Like, I expected him either to take out Bonnie or take out Fan this turn. There was no way that Bonnie could have moved out of range because her movement range is shorter than Contessa's. Okay, so at this point he put on a Valor's Fortress, decreasing incoming damage by 50% for 5 turns, and he had El Toro approach, and he missed because Bonnie's Overwatch went off and decreased his accuracy, so these are just some triggered attacks that are going off. And then Contessa approached and took out Bonnie as I expected. So now Contessa is no longer hidden, and I have an opportunity to try to eliminate one of his team members. I think what I decided to do here was, because privateers have a lot of team healing spells, I decided to just use my biggest poison, the one that shuts down healing for 5 turns, because I wouldn't have another opportunity to take out his team again. And also, since his team had the reduced dodge that I had Bonnie use earlier, I decided to just take advantage of that as much as possible, even though his team also has the Toro buff on. Like, privateers have a lot of ways to increase accuracy and dodge later on, so if I missed this opportunity to attack, then I wouldn't have one again later. So here I had Ratbeard use his guaranteed critical hit on Contessa, and unfortunately he Blade Stormed on Toro, which I didn't really want. But yeah, I positioned Fan there to take advantage of Fan's flanking, which triggers when she's directly opposite to the target from a friendly melee unit, in this case Ratbeard, and she Blade Stormed on Toro. So I think I was successful here in eliminating both Toro and Contessa. Oh no, I didn't eliminate Contessa, yeah. I said dang it, Contessa lived. Okay, so he approached with his pirate, and oh, and he used the brutal charge from his pet to reduce my accuracy. So what this does is it prevents me from getting chains, which are repeated attacks that trigger after the initial planned hit. And then he's getting more value out of his Toro. I think I lost Ratbeard, and did I lose Fan here? No, Fan lived for one more turn because he wanted to guarantee the kill on Ratbeard, so he moved Wagyu into that square, which is a pretty conservative play. And then I was mousing over Contessa and Toro here to count the rounds of the poison. Then I think I had Fan guaranteed a kill on Contessa because Contessa didn't die earlier. And then I was mousing over Abe to see like the buffs that he had on and kind of calculating my odds based on my own buffs. So I decided not to attack with my pirate because of the accuracy reduce. Like I didn't want to hit Wagyu and like trigger the reaction hits. And I also didn't want to spend my assassin on Abe while he had the fort on. So here his AI controlled pet just randomly attacked me and triggered my reaction hits. Okay, so he's just keeping on the pressure while I have the accuracy reduce on, and my reaction hits are going off. Yeah, I got pretty lucky with the repost there, the critical repost. And he's just getting more value out of Toro because he knows that Toro's gonna die of the poison. Yeah, he's also getting value out of Wagyu. And I think he used Wagyu's guaranteed super hit, the card attack. Okay, so that was basically a trade. Like Wagyu and Fan both died. It got down to Pirate versus Pirate pretty soon after this point. Yeah, so he used his Assassin Strike. That was a good play because Assassin has two components to it. One is the melee attack followed by bleed damage, which is basically like a small poison over a number of turns. And the shield that I had on was Kraken's Lament, which protects against melee damage but not against poison damage. So Fort is the one that protects against all kinds of damage. I think at this point I was calculating whether or not to hit. I decided to go for the pet because the pet has this ability called Scent, which can detect hidden attackers. So I wanted to get rid of it as soon as I could. And his pet casts Rainbow Blessing. So like if you see the stats when I mouse over my character, it says how many turns are left on each type of buff. So he used a witchy attack here and my witch hunter went off. I actually don't play Swashbuckler a lot, so I spend the most time playing Privateer, and kind of some of my Privateer habits you can see here because Privateers win through resource advantage, so I was being very, very careful in timing out stuff and like... But I think at the last moment I changed my mind and I realized that I had to take out Wagyu before the poison wore off, like before Abe was able to heal him back up. So even though I had the accuracy debuff on, I decided to just use my guaranteed Assassin Strike on the Wagyu. Yeah, it didn't have to go critical there. Like even just a regular hit would have taken Wagyu out. So even though my health was below half at this point, I did also train 2 ranks of Elusive from the Privateer trainer. Increases dodge under half health. Alright, so he is increasing accuracy and dodge. That's a Privateer only buff that they can train. Other classes can't train that. Okay, so I got rid of Gallant Defense, which is a team ability that is not useful here. And then I was thinking whether or not to heal or shield at this point, I think, and I was also counting, I was also just checking the rounds of his Valor's Fortress. So I decided to put on my own Valor's Fortress so that I could heal pretty soon while I still had my critical buff up and try to get a critical heal. And here his AI control pad is approaching. I think I successfully got rid of it with reaction hits pretty soon after this. I said Zoe is annoying because Zoe is the name of the pet. Okay, so because his fort wore off, he put on his second fort this match. And so that gave me an opportunity to cast the heal that I had been planning to cast. And here you see the second card in my bar at the bottom here. That's Black Fog, the team height that I had been trying to draw earlier. Okay, so I misspelled sent on purpose because in this game there's like filtered chat, and there's 3 levels of chat. One is called open, one is called limited, and one is menu chat. So people who have proven that they are over the age of majority using a credit card purchase, they can unlock open chat. But then people who have not made a credit card purchase, they use limited chat. And so there are some words that are blocked for some reason, and sent happens to be one of them. Yeah, so apparently he named his pet after a friend called Zoe. And I said that sounds really intense. So trio screening means playing 3 accounts at the same time, so 3 sets of 4 units. I said that's basically controlling like 12 units, 12 characters. Yeah, numbers are blocked as well, which is why I spelled 12 like that. Even though I have open chat, I just habitually type in limited a lot of the time. Okay, so his repel borders went off, which is a privateer only ability. But my base stats as swashbuckler are superior, so I dodged that. And here I was trying to go on the offensive because his increased accuracy and dodge buffs were wearing off. At the same time though, my fort was also wearing out, and I had to make sure to try to get as much damage in as possible before he wears me down with his resource advantage. So he's just trying to time out my stuff. Basically what privateers do to win. And here I was considering whether or not to heal. I think I decided to move into that square because his fort is wearing out this turn. So this means that there would be no place for him to run, and he would basically have to put on a fort because due to privateers' really bad base stats, they can like be chained to death in 1 turn if they don't have a fort up. But I was actually just trying to get him to waste a fort. So he put on the fort as I expected. And then I think at this point I was like, haha, and then I ran away. So yeah. And I just ran away because swashbucklers have a longer movement range than privateers. So I was just basically trying to waste rounds of his fort. And he was forced into an offensive position here because if he didn't take advantage of the rounds of his fort, then it would run out and he would waste a resource basically. So he had to come after me. And I think he decided to play conservatively here and put on a Valor's shield as well before approaching. So I think I continued to run at this point. Oh no, I actually decided to heal first because I was still out of range anyways. And then at this point, Matthew teleported into the chamber to come watch. The PvP community is pretty small, so people come and watch each other pretty often. I have done a bunch of videos of myself spectating other people's matches, but it's actually, this game really needs a spectator mode because when you're spectating, you're just kind of running around looking at the animations, but you can't actually see the board layout, so you have to imagine it. And if you don't have a lot of experience playing on the board, then you actually can't visualize it. So a lot of people who watch unfortunately don't have a clue what's going on. So I was counting the squares here to make sure that he wasn't in range still. Like, because people have limited resources, which is limited cards in Pirate101, positioning is a key element in trying to win the resource war. So I think at this point, because I was no longer able to run out of range, that was when I put on my resource, either my fort or my hide, can't remember. I think I put on a hide, the walk in darkness. Okay, so he's just healing up. I mean, there's not much else for him to do because when I'm hidden, I can't be targeted. I think I was considering at this point whether or not to go for the poison. I think I decided to go for it because even though he had double shields up, one of them was running out. Or I changed my mind and decided to just move instead. Yeah. Okay, so he put on another accuracy and dodge buff. So privateers have 3 of those kinds of buffs in general. One is called Zeal, which is the one that he has on right now, the strongest one, lasting 3 turns. And then there's Esprit de Corps, which lasts 5 turns. And then there's Call to Arms, which is only an accuracy buff, but it lasts 10 turns. Yeah, I was considering whether or not to poison here or go for an assassin, but he did have the Zeal up, so he was likely to dodge a lot. So I decided to go for the poison, and that's another friend watching Jesse. Anyway, the ninja pig that he has with him is a companion. So like, companions can be used both for battle and also just like for cosmetic purposes, either to decorate houses or to just follow your character around. One of the things that makes this game really enjoyable also is like the role-playing element. You can dress characters up, you know, have companions accompany you. He's a pretty intense battle by the looks. And someone else just came to watch, which is Logan. So Abe is actually choosing not to put on forts here because he knows that I have Purge. Yeah, Jesse is talking to me about a fan site organized event, a central tournament. I was considering here whether to use the Vicious Charge for defensive purposes or the Assassin. I think I decided to go for the Vicious Charge. Yeah, so he has reduced accuracy now. I'm getting some chains off the attack. Okay, Abe got really lucky here with another super. And I said all these supers. So he got a super assassin. So I think what I decided to do was I was trying to think about whether to hide or fort or go for an assassin, but then Abe does have the zeal and shield on. It's a 25% shield, but he also has zeal on. So I decided to hide here using the team hide that I wanted to use earlier. Another reason I hid is because Abe has this accessory called Death's Bargain, which means that under half health he will actually drain health like a vampire. And the only way to reduce the damage of the drain is to have a fort on or a Valor's Shield. So because I hid, that means that when his health dropped below half, the drain was unable to target my pirate. And here I was just like counting the cards again. And just counting mentally like how many attacks he has left. So he used both of his assassins. He still had the Haywire. He put on one of his other forts. Privateers have the most forts out of any class, but they also have the worst base stats. Okay, so I think at this point I decided to purge because he had the most things that I could target with my purge, and then someone else just came, which is Esme. She seems quite immature. Yeah, you know, one thing I appreciate about Duelist is you can choose whether or not to have people spectate your matches. And like, even though I enjoy sharing my matches on YouTube, I also sometimes don't like it when people watch live, because they can be really immature. Honestly, now that I'm looking at the replay, I don't know why I went for the hurl knife. I really should have gone for an assassin at this point. I think like sometimes I don't play at my best when there's distracting people in the audience. Oh, I know what I was trying to do. I was trying to get some value off of the Valor's armor, because one trick is that when you hit them when they have a Valor's armor on, it doesn't count as doing damage, so you stay hidden. So yeah, I agree with what I did there. Okay, so he put on another fort. Yeah, I think that was his last fort. So I also decided to put on my fort because so I had 800 health at this point, which means that if he used another guaranteed hit, then I would die. So that's why I decided to fort, to make sure that when I used my assassin the next turn and stopped being hidden, that I would have some defense on. However, he did a move here that really surprised me, which was the Surge of Technomancy from his weapon, and I was like, what? That can target through hide? Because I had never seen anyone do that before. Like, I knew that the Surge of Technomancy can remove buffs, but I had no idea that it was a positional target and not like a unit target. So he said, yep. And I said, well, you learn something every day, haha. So yeah, that move basically won him the match because, like, even though I was counting resources quite carefully, I did not know that Surge of Technomancy can target a hidden unit and remove the buff. So I know it has a range of 5, so like if I had known that that was a possible play, I would have moved out of range or something, or played differently. He said, I wish I had bombs, and then he cast the bomb. Yeah, I said GG, dude. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm not going to be playing that much Pirate anymore, because people are immature and I don't like hanging out with really immature people, but had a lot of good times in this game.